Welcome to the B. Andrews Radio Show. It's good to have you with us today. What a beautiful day it is here in central Wisconsin. And we are thoroughly enjoying the weather that God has given to us. That is for sure. It is a balmy and a cool and a wonderful, I think about 60 degrees outside, and I think the high today is only going to be 62. What a great day in September. Feel sorry for you all that might be a little bit further south, that might be experiencing that 80-degree weather and 80% humidity, or even those that are a little further south and might be getting soaked from the residual rain from Hurricane Harvey. So if you're going through all that, I really feel for you. I'm sorry that you're going through it, but here in Wisconsin, it is absolutely beautiful, and we are thoroughly enjoying it. Yeah, I'm sorry. John's making faces at me that I'm rubbing in, but it's good to have you along with the show today. We've got a pretty interesting topic that we'd like to talk to you about. I am one of your co-hosts, Eric Hambrock, member of the B. Andrews Band. On the other side of the room is our other co-host, the other member of the B. Andrews Band, John. Say hey, John.
Hey, I am your host and co.
Whatever that means. So today we wanted to kind of bring along the idea of reading material and different authors and books and things like that. In the second part of our show today, we're going to take a little interview of John himself and talk a little bit about his book and because he is an author,
aspiring author.
You're an aspiring author. I have actually authored a few things myself, and so it's not an easy task to do, especially if it's a major work, which is one of the reasons why the things that I have authored are not major works, because it's major work. Anyway, so we're going to talk to kind of interview John in the second half, find out how he's going on the book. In one of our earlier episodes this year, we talked with him about that once before. So we're just kind of checking in today. But so here in the first segment of our show, what we want to talk about are books that we enjoy, authors that we enjoy reading after. And so I'm going to kind of throw it out there. First, let's kind of narrow things down a little bit, and let's talk about writing styles, because to me, that is one of the major issues that tells whether or not I am going to enjoy a book, is the writing style that an author approaches with. There are certain styles I don't like. So let's start with that one. And there are books that I do not understand how they made it so successful, because I can't stand the writing style of the book. And it's just like mind-numbing, puts me to sleep.
More than style, I have a problem with subject. Like, if you have a writing style, woohoo, I can get along with that a lot better than it's just like if nothing's happening.
Okay.
I'm action oriented.
So I'm going to specifically pull out a book here. Is it Aragorn? Aragon. Okay.
That was written by like a 15-year-old, right? Something like that.
Well, when he wrote that one, he was 15. I understand he's done another one.
Well, when the first book is like you could kill someone with it. And
it's 1,000.
And drown
I think it's 1,000-page book, I believe, or
it's a lot of page book.
800 to 1,000-page book. It's the subject matter is not my subject matter, but if you make it interesting, I'm with you. Okay, I can follow along. I mean, I'm trying to pull the author off the top of my head. She wrote, Pony is one of the, one of the characters in the book is called Pony. She wrote 3 that was a subject. That was then, this is now. was one of them. Oh my goodness!
I have no idea.
I'm
going to
have you. Can you look that up for me?
What specifically? Pony?
I'm trying to get not Pony. I'm trying to get the author's name. If you would just look up the book, that was Then This Is Now.
Okay.
And find the author for me. It's a female, and she wrote hers when she was 14 or 16, I believe. Her first book, and
S.E. Hinton.
S.E. Hinton. There you go. Okay. And can you find out what her other books were that she had done?
The Outsiders?
The Outsiders. That's the first one. The Outsiders. That was Then This Is Now. Rumblefish and Tex. Those were the 4 books. Tex is actually not a part of the series. Well, it's kind of distantly related. But anyway, S.E. Hinton, and she was a teenager when she wrote that. And basically it's about a 205 page book, and it captured my attention, and I read that novel all the way through. I picked up Eragon. Okay. And I just wanted to see what the kid, because I heard he was a teenager when he wrote it. And I went through the first 2-3 pages and I said, they ain't no way. Not doing this book. Can't do it. I'm just sorry. Doesn't happen.
You don't read a lot in the fantasy genre anyway.
No, I don't. But
I don't feel like that's a fair assessment. Like if you really liked fantasy.
If you capture my attention, I will read it. If you capture my attention, I will read it.
You know, we have a friend that like really, really is like obsessed with that book series, right?
Yeah, I know. But then,
and he frequently listens to the show,
and I was,
and he's going to come and talk to you about it. What? You didn't like that book series?
Well, cool. You know what? I would love to have him comment at our on our Facebook page.
And where can he find that?
He can find our Facebook page at Facebook. B. Andrews, B-E, as in a first person's name, Andrews, A-N-D-R-E-W-S. Absolutely. Come along and say, you are out of your stinking mind. Okay, that would be great. Love that comment. In fact, you're going to see, hopefully we'll get to see some people make some comments. We'll have our poll out this particular week. By the way, before I go on with the rest of what we like, don't like, all that other kind of stuff about authors, last week's poll, first time I have ever had this happen. I don't know if I didn't do the poll correctly. People didn't understand it. Normally we get anywhere from 12 to 20, 25 people that jump on the poll and give their response. That's pretty cool. Most of the time it's rarely the same people. So there's this constant fluctuation. Last week, one person other than us responded to the poll. Now, I put my answer when I take the poll. I put our answer out there, so I'm the first one, just one. And I'm really, really baffled by that. So I'm wondering if I did something wrong. Whatever. So please, if you get a chance, we'd love to see you answer the poll. Put your comments out there. Let's start some threads and get some conversation going. But back to the idea of authors. Don't know the guy. It's a style that is just not me. The actual style that he has.
Yeah, so, I've heard people critique The Hobbit. The book The Hobbit from Tolkien in the same way, to be like, I really love the Hobbit series and everything, but I went back to read the book and it was really hard for me to follow because, they were talking in one place and then suddenly they were in another place and it wasn't really clear that they had moved. And I heard someone complain about the style of that book, actually.
Another style that this one's more of a time period more than it is a style. Now, coming up, I love Jack London. I like Jack London because he was a newspaper reporter and his stories are very short and to the point. I like that. He cuts to the chase and he says,
I know what you're building to.
Okay, and he says what's on his mind. So I picked up I think it's called War and Peace.
If you're talking about like the other giant paperweight.
Yes, as War and Peace.
Weight of papers.
And I actually read the first 10 pages of that.
Wow.
It was
knee deep in that book, Dad.
Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal. But I have read other, and I actually have some very, very old copies. I have an 1880s copy of Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And I actually like that particular version, and I like that particular style. I like Edgar Allan Poe. That sounds...
He's really creepy.
But he also is short and to the point. He doesn't belay things, and it's kind of interesting. So what I'm getting at, there's one particular time period, the 1910 to about 1925 early American lit. Oh, it is. It's kind of romance, kind of writing, and so really drawing out.
I think you need to go actually would start further back in time than that, because by the time you get to hard-broiled the detective novels, they all start coming out, and they're like out in the 30s and everything. And those books are all pretty short.
They're pretty short.
Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett. Those books are short and to the point, so
they're okay, short and to the point, but that's why I'm talking about 10 to 25, and what they're trying to be is like this British kind of thing going on. They're trying to show that they're educated and they're flowery in order to describe something. I have a lot of theological books from that particular time period, and it's just like, come on, man, just come out and say it. Just say it. Don't beat around the bush and give me 100 words to tell me the wall was white.
I tried to pick up and read. And I feel like we need to like put a disclaimer on this that like we are not the end all be all for opinions on books. But
true that. That's why I started and said my opinion.
Yeah, this is my opinion.
This is my opinion.
Because I'm sure there's like if any like English professor would ever listen to this, they'd want to kill us.
Oh yes, Mrs. DeGroff.
Yeah. War and Peace. I loved that book.
I am telling you. So, anyway, so let's talk about some authors.
Okay.
Rattle off some authors that you actually enjoy.
That I've actually enjoyed. Talked about hard-broiled fiction. Raymond Chandler. He wrote not Sam Spade. Philip Marlowe is one of his characters. The Big Sleep on like 100 must-read books. Someone put out a list of like the 100 must-read books, and The Big Sleep is on there. The Long Goodbye, both of those. I like Decker when he's not super.
Okay, you just jumped.
Creepy.
You just jumped modern time.
Correct.
So you're
I just jumped like way.
Ted
far.
Decker, right?
Ted Decker. He's a Christian
2 Ks.
author. He writes some cool. The book 3, Kiss. Those are psychological thrillers. If you're into the weird fantasy, then there's the Circle Trilogy, which has 4 books in it. Think about that one. The Paradise novels, which are all tied into that. He does this really cool thing that if you like huge sprawling histories.
Just a correction real quick. I thought that was the Circle Chronicles. You said Paradise.
The Paradise novels are separate.
Oh, okay.
Because there's also the books of history, and there's other ones that tie in. But Decker does this really cool thing that he has like several different book series, and they all tie in together. And you'd have to read after him to get how they all tie in together, because it's really complicated. But it's really also very fascinating. So if you're into that kind of thing.
We also I said 2 Ks, and I was referring to how to spell his name, Dekker. Gotta mention Frank. He is one of our favorites.
Frank Peretti.
Really like the things that he writes. Very challenging, also spiritually. Other writers, I am C.S. Lewis bound. I do like some of his books. However, there is a few that I don't. I really like Screwtape Letters, which has its own kind of thinking to it, but I really didn't care for The Great Divorce. Okay, you get into a vehicle and travel off into outer space. Okay, that's just not me. You're right.
Hey
when
man, you just didn't concept.
I didn't flow, and he put me into this weird world to which I didn't want to go. So anyway,
you shouldn't have read the book.
So these are authors and so forth that we're talking about, but I noticed that my cup is empty. We have other things to talk about in our upcoming segment. A few more authors that I want to mention. Plus, I want to interview the author sitting in the chair across the room. So aspiring author. So let's go get our refills. Let's come back here and enjoy talking about some books that would go well with that cup of coffee. You're listening to the B. Andrews Radio Show. Sing the chord of praise. Well, there's a guy I know, so let's call him Joe, because he's a real good friend. He wants to start a fight when things aren't right in this world that we're living in. So it says to him, Joe, I know that you know that fighting never pays. So instead of a fight when things aren't right, why don't you start with a chord of praise? Na, 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 na. Sing the chord of praise. Welcome back to the B. Andrews Radio Show. We are in our second segment of the show. Today we're talking about authors and authors that we like to read after and so forth. And in our first segment, we were able to kind of get it out of the way, some of the stuff that we don't like. That was kind of said. In case you can't tell, I'm opinionated. Comes with the territory, or with the last name Hambrock, one of the two. Yeah. But talked about not enjoying romance type of writing.
Well, I mean, you did.
I did. And I don't mean romance novels. And I must admit, and I'll say here right now, I have never read a romance novel in my life. Okay,
so you can't have an opinion about that.
I can't have an opinion about that, but I'm talking about the romance style of writing where it's very flowery, very wordy, and trying to describe things. Last of the Mohicans.
He doesn't like flowers either, yeah.
Hey, Rose is in our family. I just want you to know that, okay? Last of the Mohicans type of thing, not enjoyable to me. It should not take 3 to 5 pages to say the wall was white. Okay, just say it, get it over with. Let's get where we're going. Okay,
as ivory as tusks and as flat and straight as
yeah. There you go.
See, of Dover. Blah 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 blah.
As it moved from one corner to the other, endlessly flowing in its ivory. No, not ivory. It's alba color of nothingness that drifted away into
Meanwhile, in the 21st century, hey, that white wall over there.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. So no, I don't get into that kind of writing, but I will say, and I'm not a prolific reader. My wife, I would call a prolific reader. She gets 3 or 4 books a week from the library. They go back. She gets 3 or 4 more books from the library. I mean, she is constantly reading these 300, 400 page books and killing 2 or 3 in a week. She is a prolific reader. And by the way, she is the mystery novel, the detective novel, the, international intrigue
FBI
novel,
FBI thriller.
Yeah, that she loves those books. Clive Cussler is one of her.
Clive Cussler.
Cussler, not Gussler?
No.
Oh, okay. That's one of hers. Some of the other ones that she likes.
J.A. Jance, Dick Francis, David Baldacci.
Yeah, David Baldacci and so forth. So my reading has been textbooks. And being a minister, I continue to read textbooks all my life. And so textbook style writing is what I kind of like. Say what you mean. Give me the information. Let's move on. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of like that style. But before I go into our interview with our up-and-coming author that we have sitting across the room, let me say that the greatest invention to writing is the audio novel.
I was going to say the printing press, but
No. The audio novel.
you mean of the 21st century?
Of the 21st century. I have taken advantage of this now. I have gotten in more books in the past 2 years since we've been able to click on Amazon.com and download some books or get them from the library on audio CDs. And while we're out on band trips, we pop those bad boys in. And I've gotten some. I've actually, you can say I've gotten some novels in, but I didn't read them. I listened to them.
Feels like cheating. I mean, when you can't say like, "Oh, that was a really good book," but you can't actually say you read it. It feels like it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, on one,
It's like cutting corners.
well, it would only be cutting corners, except there's one fact: they were unabridged. So it was the whole book, the entire book, nothing but the book. We didn't get that abridged version, where it just cut to the good parts. Because I'm going to tell you, back in the day, and you dislike me for this little characteristic, but back in the day when I had to read a book, I'll be honest, I did not go and get the Cliff Notes. But I did have a very distinct reading style. I would go through...
Style? You want to call that a style?
There is. I'd read the first chapter, then I'd cut to the middle of the book, and I'd read 2 or 3 chapters, and then I would skim the front of each chapter and head to the last 3 chapters, and I'd be done. And I could get done reading a book that way. Don't sit there and shake your head at me, young man. It's just, I needed to get through that book, and that's what got me through that book. Whatever. There's only a few books that I have read. That is a
terrible use of the 3-act structure. I'm going to read the first act and the third act, the shortest parts of the structure.
And you may say there were parts of the story you missed. You are so right. They were the ones I wanted to miss too. My first novel that I read, required in school, Where the Red Fern Grows. I want to tell you what, that was brutal to make young kids, make middle school kids read that book. If you've never read that book, go for it. I'll let you read it and you decide for me. But I could still remember in that class, here we are. This is my first novel. I'm thinking, I think at least it was my first required novel that I had to read. And I'm sitting there going through the book, and all these other kids. So the teacher would sometimes in class give us time to read the book while we were doing other things. And so they're like, okay, you got 15 minutes. Everybody get out your novel that you're working on wherever you are. And I'll give you 15 minutes to read during class time. We're done with our other stuff. Okay, great. And all of a sudden I'd be sitting in class and I'm, reading this because I'm going to do, we were told you're not allowed to skip pages. You must read this, every word on this one. I was like, so I'm reading through this. And all of a sudden in class, you could hear this. I mean, and it would start rippling through the class, and they're like, what are they crying about? Because I wasn't in that part of the story.
There's something going around?
What is going? Yeah, and I'm looking around at all the other kids, and about 2 days later, I'm at that part in the book, and it's like, I'm not going to say what it is, just in case you may want to read the book.
We had to read a book like that called Stone Fox when I was in elementary school.
Aw.
Yeah.
Aw.
Consequently, let's just say pretty much the same thing happens. It's sad.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those.
So I got John over here, John Hambrock, the aspiring author, sitting across the room. First off, tell us, can you tell us the title of the book that you're currently working on?
Yes, it's called 12, The DC Attack.
All right. DC as
in Washington, D.C.
Oh, not direct current, but Washington.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
12, The DC Attack. And obviously, it's not one of those books that the title has nothing to do with the book.
That's correct. It's safe to say that it happens in Washington, D.C., and there is some form of an attack.
Okay. And yes, the number 12 is significant?
It somehow plays into that.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. All right. Is it a significant part it plays into it, or is it just like mentioned somewhere in the book?
It's very significant, and it's actually significant. So this book, if everything goes according to plan, this book will fit into a 3 or 4 book series. And this book actually probably falling number 2 in the timeline. But yes, very, very important.
All right. Okay. So tell us, how long have you been working on this book?
Oh, you wanted to bring that up.
Yes, I'm going to bring that up.
So this book started because I was given an English assignment to write in high school. It would have been my sophomore or senior year. And so starting off, I was one of the main scenes in the book, the actual so there's a supposed terrorist attack against the Library of Congress. And so I had this idea for like a really cool scene, and the library's blowing up and blah, 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 blah. So like that's where it started. I started writing that for just that scene for this writing assignment. And I don't remember specifically all the requirements.
But that's inspiration. That's not how long you've been writing the book.
Oh, I've taken breaks in between writing, but since being in high school is when I actually started.
Okay. So writing...
Sorry, I guess I kind of got off that question.
But writing then, would you say, if it's taken this long, tell me, can you kind of tell us why it's taken that long? Give us the skimmy on how writing is.
So I haven't written solid for the past, how many years, and I haven't. It's been a big process, and I've worked on, like I told you, there's three or four books I want in this. So I've worked on the timeline of how this is going to fall, what the full story is that's not just covered in just this book. And then there's lots of different storylines in this book that have been written and refined. It's been a process of learning, so you're supposed to write out your entire rough draft manuscript, get it all the way through, and then go back and fix all the plot holes. And rewrite scenes, take out scenes, add scenes. So when I started writing this, I didn't know any of that. So I've literally rewritten the first, there's a two or three chapter section. Now that's a one chapter section. There's one chapter section I've rewritten 5 times probably. I mean, just rewritten it. That's actually the original library scene. And it happens nothing like when I originally wrote it back in high school, because when I wrote it back in high school, I had no idea what the Library of Congress looked like. I was just making it up.
So what are some things of research that you've had to do in order to make this book? I'm assuming you're trying to make this book accurate, and you're not just making things up out of your mind.
Yeah, correct. So I do have some specialist kind of people that I've gotten to ask some questions about too. I've done a lot of personal research. That's something else that has taken a lot of time into certain protocols and just the way things work when it comes to government systems. And then we've actually gotten to go to D.C., Washington, D.C., to do some on-site to get some ideas about what all of this really does look like, where, for even inspiration, getting to go there is actually inspired. There's 2 major scenes that really was just inspired by getting to see it in person. Like, if I had never gotten to go there, then I wouldn't have thought about these 2 scenes unfolding the way they did, so...
being that I've been with you on some of those trips to Washington, one of the things I know that we tried to make accurate, so we literally had to go on foot. It wouldn't work if we didn't walk it, because that's part of your characters. What they have to do is they're on foot in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, pretty much most of the time.
And so we needed to know how timing would work out, because you wanted to know if you went from point A to point B first, could it be done by foot? And secondly, how long would that really take you? And does this really work? And so we actually went and walked it. It was cold. It was wet.
Oh, that was so cold that day.
And walked Navy Yard, or what used to be Navy Yard. Some of that's missing now. There's a baseball field down there now.
That's not in the place of the Navy Yard, but
at one time Navy Yard went that far. Remember when we looked up the history of the Navy Yard?
Yes, but not any time recently.
Not pertinent to your story. It's not. But we had to walk around the baseball. Okay, but we had to walk around that baseball field, and we had to do that. What is the biggest thing holding you back from finishing this book? What's keeping you from pushing it forward?
Best advice I've heard about being a writer, and probably the most difficult part about it, is not developing style or anything like that. It's simply just sitting down and doing it. And I've got, we have the band thing that we do. We have, the different ministries that I'm involved in. Everything takes time, and you just have to be able to sit down and do it. And it is a discipline to just sit here and be like, no, I'm not going to move until I get this much written. So
all right.
it's a discipline to develop.
I have a few more questions I kind of want to prod into your brain and to try and learn, and maybe if you have some suggestions or some advice to some young writers out there. But it's time to take another break.
Well, I am a young
writer.
And
then we're going to come back and also do some good news. So get a refill and come on back. You're listening to the B. Andrews Radio Show.
Gut, I have this feeling you're calling me to something so much more. Well, every time I get this close, I give up before I go too far. This time I'll let nothing stop me. I'll go until I've got no more. So batten down the hatches, say hello to arms, going so much further than I've ever been before. Won't be easy, I don't know what's in store. Even if I stand alone, I'm taking on the world. When it comes to this, Lord, I'm something of an expert. I've been on my knees 100 times before. This time things are so much different. The man that I was, I ain't no more. Well, every time I get this close, I give up before I go too far. But this time I'll let nothing stop me. I'll go until I got no more. So batten down the hatches, say hello to arms.
Welcome back to our third and final segment of the B. Andrews Radio Show. We're talking to our aspiring artist and the co-host.
You mean author?
Yeah. Well, you're an aspiring artist, too. Nobody knows who we are.
Then I'm an artist that aspires to be known.
There you go. Well, yeah, we try to get our music out there. By the way, if you want to connect with us, feel free to do so. We told you about our Facebook page. You can find us at B. Andrews, as in a person's name, B-E, capital A-N-D-R-E-W-S, B. Andrews at Facebook. So connect with us there. Be a part of the radio group, B. Andrews Radio Show. And put down your thoughts, start conversation, talk to us about your favorite author, maybe your favorite book, and that'll be a lot of fun. So we had mentioned the idea, what is the most difficult thing. How would you tell a young, aspiring writer such as yourself, and you're getting it done, although there are times I'm like, hey, when's that book going to be done? Those are conversations that we have, especially because he and I, the thing that maybe our listeners don't understand is that you and I, being the head of our own ministry, yet we are the workers of our own ministry. We also are the writers of our own songs. We're the writers of our own books. We are the music arrangers. You're the sound engineer. You won't let me touch that. That's cool. But I do all the booking and do the business management. And so we totally work this thing together. And so there are times that you're saying to me, hey, well, what are we doing about this? There's times I'm saying to you, hey, what are we doing about this? We hold each other to it. But young, aspiring writers, you said that the discipline is a big problem. Well, let's end with this before we go to good news. And what would you recommend, suggest in order to conquer that discipline problem? How would you do it, or what would you suggest to get over it? I mean, we all know that the Nike motto is probably just about the only thing that really works. Just do it. But how do you get there? I mean, what do you suggest?
Oh, there's a couple of different advices that I've heard, using like the reward system, self-rewarding. So like, if I write X amount of pages a day, then I earn X. Setting deadlines for yourself is another good way of doing it. You said the Nike motto, just do it. That's a big thing. So for instance, like if I know I got to do this during the day, if I have open time to do it earlier rather than later, do it earlier because something will come along and you won't get to do it later. It's just, I mean, it sounds obvious, but it's super easy.
Never put off to tomorrow what you can do today. And that you just moved it up by hours.
Yep. Never do this evening what you get done this morning. I mean, it really is. Because when you sit down to write, it's also the same position that some people sleep in. So it's just, the struggle is real.
I was not sleeping. I was reading the novel that's on the back of my eyelids.
Yeah. So I mean, those are all great ways to help yourself knuckle down, buckle down, and get it done. The other one would be knowing your storyboard first. So that way you always know the direction you're writing in. So for instance, I have my full on, all of my different scenes, or at least most of the scenes that I know I need to complete this novel, I have them written out. So I don't have to be like, oh man, I don't know what to write next. If I already have my storyboard out, I know exactly what I can move on to. One of the other ones is, and it gets a little messy writing this way, but always writing something, not necessarily writing in chronological order, but writing what inspires you. I participated in a short seminar, writing seminar, and that's what the authors had suggested. He's like, I don't write in chronological order. I go to whatever part I'm most inspired to write at this point in time. And another good reason to really have an accurate storyboard is so you're not getting lost about, what's missing in your story. But I would also suggest that can be a helpful way of writing too.
So you're not in college, but you just said that you are taking other seminars and classes. How big is that to keep pushing you forward? That you're still. What do you do to keep learning?
I read books. So, for instance, I didn't take typing in school. I went to the library and I got a typing book and taught myself to type. I'm not the best typer and I frequently make mistakes, but I can type a lot better than I used to. So I took a writing seminar to help that. The resources you can just find online just by Google. I mean, it sounds silly in some ways, but it's amazing the resources you can find about storyboarding, how other people storyboard, just all sorts of stuff, resources and things.
And you found that helpful, right?
Yeah. Oh, I will never discount learning from other people, whether you do it in college or whether you just go out and find the people yourself, to learn after. But that's definitely, don't try to do it all by yourself. That's just being stupid.
So what we want to tell our listening audience, if you are inspired to move forward in writing, if you are feeling like, man, that's a great medium, I want to get out there and use that in order to influence my world, what we wanted to just try to help you with today is to realize, do it. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. You would find out it's really difficult. It doesn't pay a whole lot of money up front, and it takes time, and you got to work it, and you got to do it. But you know what? If God lays it on your heart to do it, move forward and go after it and do that kind of thing. So we want to transition into what we call our good news segment. So here we go. John, do you have any good news for us today?
Yes, comes from the Inside Edition, talking about Hurricane Harvey, actually. So the headline reads, hundreds of people displaced by Hurricane Harvey fed after couple postpones wedding. So here it goes. Texas couple Dana? Oh, that'd be a way of spelling Dana. Huh. Dana Sulkin and Josh Tillis had planned to hold a welcome dinner for friends and family before their Sunday wedding in Houston, but instead, those gourmet meals went to hundreds of Hurricane Harvey victims. The location of their dinner was scheduled for Friday, was the Aishel House, a Houston charity that provides housing and meals to patients getting treatment at Texas Medical Center. Sulkin said the charity is close to her heart because her mother, Holly Harwood Sulkin, who passed away 5 years ago due to breast cancer, helped found it. So when they found out that the shelter had made the decision last week to use the food from their dinner to feed those displaced by Hurricane Harvey instead, they wasted no time stepping up to help prepare the food. On Tuesday, after Hurricane Harvey had caused major flooding across the Houston area, Sulkin and Tolis showed up to volunteer. My fiance and I went over there and helped to make the meals, Sulkin told InsideEdition.com. Everyone in Houston is right now is doing everything we can to try to help. Once we were able to get out there and do something for the community, it really felt amazing. The meals consisted of breaded chicken, mashed potatoes, fresh rolls, and fresh vegetables, among other things that were scheduled for the couple's 3-course dinner. It was delivered to hotels, the George R. Brown Convention Center, and various other places where people were in need of meals across the city. Sulkin said she was glad the food was able to sustain people. We were very fortunate to fare so lucky in the storm, but so many others weren't. It was the obvious decision that we needed to get out and help, said Sulkin. It was therapeutic for us to get out for our own personal feelings of sadness to do something productive for the community. The couple who met in college got engaged last September has postponed their wedding until December.
Wow. So let me get this straight. They were getting ready to be married. Hurricane Harvey rolls in on the weekend that they were going to get married. Then when they decided to, instead of having their own wedding reception, they took the food from their wedding reception, gave it so that people could have it. Then, not only did they give it, but there wasn't anybody to prepare it. So they went to the kitchen and helped prepare the food so that it could go to these different places. And they gave that way and postponed their wedding until December. That is some serious...
They gave a lot.
That is some serious giving right there. So if you can get a chance to read that story, or if you just want to take some time and go somehow stop by their Facebook page or something and just give them the thumbs up, that's really that is just so cool. And and then when they talked about having feeling really good because they were able to give. I think the Bible has a scripture for that. It is more blessed to give than it is to receive, or you are more blessed when you give than when you receive.
It also says the Lord loves a cheerful giver.
Yep. And I didn't hear any. Could you see that? This was going to our wedding. Here, enjoy. I think I would be a little indigestion to be able to swallow that. So, had a great attitude about it. That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. And it makes me wonder about others who can't seem to give that joyfully. So our challenge to you, there are people all around us that are in need. And this is one of the reasons why we come to you and we talk to you about the good news sections of the stories. It's to inspire the people who listen to our radio show and our broadcast, and to tell them, hey, get out there and do something in your community that makes a difference, and put your faith out there where people can see it. And by that I mean do something that would show Jesus Christ to other people. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up our radio show. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing here today. We wanted to let you know that next week we're going to be taking a look at youth workers. Wasn't that what's on the agenda, John?
Yeah, I think we're gonna do youth pastors and stuff, kind of thing.
So we got the youth pastors, the volunteer youth workers. We're going to take a look at their job positions in a church. So if you want to hear some pretty good stories, you want to be here for that for next week. Also, connect with us on Facebook, connect with us on Twitter, share this radio program with your friends, and let them know how much you enjoyed it and that this would be something that they would really get into listening to. So that's going to be it for us today. Thank you for being here this Tuesday. Come back next Tuesday and be a part of the B. Andrews Radio Show. Goodbye, everybody.